Hello and welcome back to another chapter overview here through the Essentials of Social Media Marketing textbook. Today we're looking at Pinterest, and this is a chapter that you probably might know the least about in terms of all of these different social networks, where we're going to discuss how businesses can really utilize these various channels to build a brand, sell products, and the like. So Pinterest is really an interesting social network. I personally have gotten more into this over the last several years, but there's certainly a value here to utilize Pinterest in terms of a business point of view. And we're going to go over a couple of different elements here. And unlike the other chapters that we've already reviewed here in this textbook, I will go a little bit more into what makes Pinterest, because I do think it is utilized a little bit less now today than most of the others. That it's definitely used less than Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, but at the same time, people use it more for a when they are in the buying mood per se. So let's go ahead and dig in here. There's a lot of little videos here that they share that the author uses in terms of how Pinterest is useful for marketers. I'm not going to play these here, but just a quick overview is that there's close to 500 million monthly users, and there's hundreds of billions of pins. And what is a pin? We're going to just jump right over to that. A pin is a piece of content that links back to something online that a user saves. And when you save a pin or you pin it, you put it on a board, which essentially is like a folder or a page where you group similar pins. And you can create pins, you can post them up yourself, you can create content, and you also have a corresponding account. So you have something like this, Sunshine Travel. This is a pin, and it really just acts as a preview and a link to a piece of content online. And with a lot of businesses, that content is a blog post, video, an infographic, podcast, something similar to that. And I really find it an interesting way to save and catalog content for users. And when you think about use cases, a lot of times the everyday person will hop online here, take a look at some things, but they're looking for inspiration first and foremost. You see a lot of people on Pinterest looking for DIY things, home improvement things. A lot of younger parents look for parenting advice. Professionals are looking for workplace support, maybe some professional development. In the case of the travel here, people like to share aspirational ideas. Oh, the dreamiest towns in Prague. So maybe I want to go to Europe someday, or maybe I'm already going to Europe and I want to collect and pin all of the content I can find about Prague because I'm already going here. So I might as well try to check out some of the sites that I've seen online. And boards kind of look like this when you look on a computer, on a desktop, on a phone. They're just individually listed, but they look kind of fun. And honestly, this is kind of like the standard for. I guess I would look at like a blog page when you think about like a news page, a news site. Content's kind of staggered. You see images, you see text, you see logos. It's really kind of become the standard in terms of user interface today. Now, if you think about pin formats, there's a ton of them. Standard pins, this is what it looks like. Image, you can read the article, you can save the pin, you can leave comments. There's all sorts of comments. Videos, where a pin will play a video for you, just like any other vertical video feed. You have products where you can visit a product itself. There is a price. Click on it, go to it, make a purchase. Then there's collections, another just kind of like more products available in one pin. Then you have idea pins, which I really like these, where a multi-page canvas as they call it, which I think is a good way to put it. And you can have several different elements to a pin. It's not just one piece of content. And then you have other things. Um, there's variations upon all of those. They have they call it takes, which is like, what's your opinion on something, which is just another type of video pin, but all sorts of stuff. Now, Pinterest really has two applications for businesses. One is the type of the shopping element that I just showed you. You can set up a shop within Pinterest and let users buy things right from in there. Very much B2C, first of all. Not a lot of B2B elements here in the shopping piece, but it really works pretty easily. They're easy to add. Content's pretty easy to put on there. You add price, inventory, make all of your sales right there. Pretty easy. Generally, what you can do is connect your store online, right to Pinterest. They mentioned Shopify here. There's other connectors as well, but pretty straightforward. I did want to mention that up front because it is something that works kind of akin to Instagram shopping, Facebook shopping, where you can do most of the transaction right within the social network, right within the app there, and you don't have to actually leave. Now, I personally am of the mind that where I use Pinterest more for a brand awareness perspective and more of an educational perspective. Because if we go back up here to Pinterest by the numbers, right, the US dominates, but most of Pinterest is still female. Pinterest has always been more of a female dominated platform. And Pinterest actually was built, I don't know if it copied this or what, but there was a site similar to Pinterest many, many years ago in the mid 2000s called StumbleUpon. And I used StumbleUpon all the time when I was in high school and college, where you just clicked a button that said stumble and you moved on and you just were given a piece of content. Generally, it was funny or it was educational, it was goofy, and just from all corners of the internet. And there was an algorithm where, based on if you liked it or not, it would deliver you more content similar. And really, that was the kind of like the foundation, the building block for not just Pinterest, but a lot of social media, where based on you're given a random piece of content and what your opinion is of it, rating up or down, it gives you something else. Pinterest in particular was really the successful successor to StumbleUpon because it was able to monetize this idea that you can just scroll through stuff that people post to the internet, and based on your thoughts, based on what you do with it and how you engage with it, you can either see more of it or less of it. And it's a very interesting concept that has become kind of the norm, pretty much standard for social media today. And with Pinterest, content started very much heavily in the DIY, parenting, mom blogs type of space. Now, interesting enough, over the past year, things have started to change and the number of male users has gone up. This data is already outdated. And Pinterest actually reported that their male user base had increased over 50% throughout the pandemic, and it's still going strong today. So it's still unbalanced. There's still way more female users, but it's certainly not completely dominated or as dominant as it was once before. Now, when you think about Pinterest, if you think about Twitter, for example, most Twitter users do not tweet. Most Twitter users, they get on, they look at their Twitter feed, they see what others have to say, and then they leave. And Pinterest is very much not that case, not that way. Most Pinterest people do pin stuff. They don't post original content, but they do pin actually stuff. They add stuff to their boards. And as a result, you end up with a lot of inspirational stuff and things that people plan to go back to. And these facts here are really interesting because I would say these are numbers that no other social network has. in that you can discover a new brand, a new product. A lot of 87% of people have purchased something because of Pinterest. 80% of weekly pinners have discovered a new brand or product. 93% use Pinterest to plan purchases. And so what that means is that people go on to Pinterest because they are looking to do something, not just like, oh, I need to do something, but like, I need to say, buy some new windows. What do I, and go through Pinterest and I look through it. And if you really want to see an account in action, a successful account in action, go check out Lowe's or Home Depot or Michael's, like any of these stores that specialize in helping you around the house. Some of them have some really extravagant Pinterest accounts where they will share all sorts of best practices and kind of their products in action. It really is a great content marketing exhibition where they make you like really want their products. And I mean, you probably aren't going to be able to do it yourself, do it all yourself, but you're going to try, and nobody's going to tell you otherwise. So this is really an interesting and fascinating element of Pinterest because this is not the case. People do not go on Facebook looking to buy something. People don't go onto Twitter or Instagram looking to buy stuff. People go to Pinterest to not just buy stuff, but they want to see something creative and clever that they can do and that they can buy for themselves. That is something really unique with this social network. So let's go ahead and jump over to marketing for Pinterest. I just wanted to mention one thing here is that Pinterest does drive millions of visits to other sites every day, to business sites in particular. And I'm not going to really dig into the Pinterest algorithm because I think we kind of already talked about it. It's pretty straightforward. But think about a Pinterest content strategy. First off, I don't think optimal times is a thing with Pinterest because Pinterest doesn't rely on the sense of time the way that Twitter does, the way that Instagram does, the way that TikTok does. Not saying that, you never have to post or just post at midnight, but it's not a big deal to post at noon when if you meant to post at 7. Because really they don't have the timeliness factor that most other social networks have. On LinkedIn, for example, some new numbers have come out that you have about 4 to 6 hours after you post an update to get engagements, or else your post is not going to be delivered. So if you post a LinkedIn post at midnight, you are done. You're not going to get anything. Your post is going to fall flat. It's not going to be delivered to anybody. I've seen this firsthand dozens of times with myself. On the other hand, with Pinterest, they're not looking for stuff to be, engaged with immediately. And actually, I would argue that with Pinterest, if there's one social network that you don't need to worry about the timing with, it's that. Again, I don't know if I posted at midnight per se, but it ultimately, like, the timing is not a big deal. This is interesting, though, that there are certain topics that perform better on different days. Specifically how Mondays with fitness all the way down to Saturdays with travel. It's very much in line with what people are thinking about. Like, what do I got to do? What do I want to do? What do I feel like I'm obligated to do? I need to work out today. It's a Monday. Saturday. Oh, I'm going to be traveling today. What can I look for? What are some tips? So, these are just kind of interesting to see. High quality visuals, that's very important. You need to make sure that this is not a screenshot type of thing. And you need to make sure that your descriptions are not too long. Keywords are useful. There is a search engine optimization element to Pinterest because people, while they will stumble upon many pins, they do search for pins too. The Pinterest search bar isn't quite as relevant as YouTube's search bar, but I would say of all of the social networks, the searching on Pinterest is probably the most important after YouTube, if we count that, than all of the others. And it's not that people don't like scroll through their feed, because they do. But if you think about it, if you come to Pinterest and you're looking for something specific, like, hey, I need to I'm trying to think of something. I'm looking for tips on traveling light, getting through security quickly. You're going to search something. You're not going to just scroll through your feed until you find it. You're going to search for that very specific thing. Now, people generally do get caught up and start scrolling mindlessly through their feeds, but there's a very good chance that people are going to search. So make sure to define and describe what it is that you are creating and posting. That'll lead to a lot more views, a lot more engagements, a lot more pins, a lot more saving to boards. Hashtags are useful, but this is very similar to Twitter, where just hashtagging individual words doesn't really do anything. But if there is a phrase or a couple of words that you think people might be looking for, that is useful in the world of Pinterest. Now, the the other thing here, I won't go through all of these things here. Um, I would encourage, checking all these out, checking out these ideas. There's some good recommendations. Um, but it won't go through every single one, but I did want to spend a minute on advertising here. But before we get into advertising, I do want to talk about the B2B value of Pinterest, and that is the educational element here. So I think the B2B side of Pinterest is pretty straightforward. It sells itself, right? If you're a nursery and you sell plants, right? Very easy to see the value of Pinterest. If you're a restaurant, easy food, what in different ways, of course, but very straightforward. You sell backpacks. Again, pretty easy. You're not just going to post photos of backpacks, but you're going to show people, with the lifestyle, how the backpack's all rugged, or if it's really fancy, how it gets utilized in the city with a professional. But the B2B side is a little bit different. And that is more based on the fact that you can't just promote a product because you are talking to consumers here, but you want to appeal to the educational side because people do come to Pinterest for inspiration and they come to Pinterest to learn. They don't come to Pinterest to just make a micro purchase. They do want to generally learn something. So, in my experience, I have seen the best B2B content on Pinterest to be infographics, data visualizations, and other tangential content that relates to a B2B company. An example would be, say, an email marketing software provider. I've used this example before, but it's the most straightforward. A program like MailChimp, for example. They're not going to get much on Pinterest by, say, posting like a design of an email. Oh, look at this person designed this with MailChimp. Well, okay, maybe that is not taking advantage of it. Rather, they're better off promoting something much more visual and exciting to see kind of the impact that MailChimp can have. And yes, well, some examples, some testimonials, like the beautiful creations that you can create to do okay. So too can data visualizations, infographics, to show, depending on what the value proposition of the company is, how does our product make things easier for your business? That is where you could have an infographic showing, the time saved, data visualization showing high deliverability rates. You just want to share content that is really intrinsically visual, that looks good, that will capture the eyes of the people scrolling or capture the people that are searching for email marketing related topics. The other thing on the B2B side is that content, the goal is that you want people to click through a pin, go to your website, fill out a form, and eventually make a purchase for your business. That's kind of the buyer journey for Pinterest for a B2B company. So you want to think about what are the other things that can get somebody to actually click through and go to your website. And that is where it's important to build trust and authority as a brand, which on social media is not always necessary. On Twitter, that doesn't if you just spend all day on Twitter as a business building your brand through trust and authority and all these facts, it's just gonna fall on deaf ears. It's just gonna blend into the noise. On Twitter, you got to be a little bit more rambunctious, a little bit louder, a little bit more out there. But on Pinterest, you can share the cold hard facts, show what makes your brand trustworthy, not boring, overly corporate stuff, but the type of content that is going to that somebody can see visually, of course, and say, "Wow, that's interesting. That's motivating. That's inspirational. I'm going to click through and learn a little bit more." Because people are on Pinterest to learn, they are on Pinterest to create. But when it comes down to it, they are looking for they are expecting to see brands putting their best foot forward, and they're not expecting that on other networks, but on Pinterest they are. And if I had to wrap things up here, it's that B2B definitely has a tougher time on Pinterest than B2C. If I'm selling a consumer directly to you, if I'm selling a t-shirt to you, it's going to be a lot easier to show that on Pinterest and get you to take an action than if I'm selling you a piece of software. But there is a use case. Now, back here on the advertising side, Pinterest advertising works very similar to the other social networks. You have similar targeting opportunities and you have similar ad objectives, right? On one side, you have the awareness where you just want to reach, where you just want to get your brand in front of new people for the first time. Conversions, you want to drive actual sales or signups. And ad formats, they exist all, like I walked through before, all the different types of content. And you can walk through the creation of a campaign here, whatever. The one thing I will say, and they don't have it, I guess they have it here, is that the sponsored content on Pinterest does seem to blend in and get viewed a little bit more than on other social networks. I don't have the data to back this up, but at the same time, just as a user, if you're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, it's pretty obvious what's a sponsored piece of content. But on Pinterest, while it does say, it'll show you, okay, what is the actual, what's being promoted here? It blends in a little bit better. And I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, and you can't actually see here, but it does help. And as a result, you do end up, at least in my experience, I've ended up with much better results with Pinterest ads than on other social networks. Now, I mean, you have to be promoting the right product. You got to have the right goal. You got to have some really good visuals. But at the same time, you need to really work hard to ensure that your visuals are going to look good when they are blending in to the homepage for a user. That will get you the most eyes on it, the most engagements, and your money is going to be pretty well spent. I've run ads. I have not run nearly as many ad campaigns on Pinterest as the other social networks, but I can tell you that the few that I have run on Pinterest have done some of the best numbers that I've seen. And to this day, my small business is only active on LinkedIn and Pinterest. And I've since shut down the Pinterest account because I've run out of time. But for a long time, I was getting a lot of interest, a lot of users, and a lot of leads coming directly from Pinterest, which I didn't expect. But at the same time, when my target audience are younger professionals, looking for educational resources in the digital marketing world, and as a result, I was getting a lot of traffic to my website because I was piquing interest with the descriptions and the headlines. I had good visual photography. I wasn't just using stock photos. It weren't just, it stood out. And if you can do those things on Pinterest from a business perspective, you will be able to get some success. It takes a little bit of time. It takes a little bit of time to build it out. And yes, it's not the same as writing a tweet. You can write a tweet for a company in 30 seconds. On Pinterest, it's going to take a little while to build out and strategize what exactly you're creating. But I do stand behind Pinterest as a strong social network, both from an advertising and an organic content perspective. And I hope you'll check it out. I thought it was worth discussing here. I think this chapter is is underrated, underutilized, but it's definitely good, especially if you are in the B2B space.